welcome to World Konnect. This is where you get news from around the world. Now, the earthquake that shook Italy this week has left hundreds dead, even as the search for survivors continues. In the show today, we will get you the latest from Italy and from Afghanistan, where the American university was attacked by terrorists. On the other hand, North Korea test-fired another ballistic missile in a move that sent ripples across to its neighbors. Not just this, we will also tell you more about the World Tango Festival that is underway in Argentina. But before that, let's first take a look at the top stories. More than 250 killed in the Italy earthquake. As the Italian Prime Minister vows to rebuild ruined towns, the European country has a tough task ahead. After terror attack in Kabul's American university, United Nations urges countries to bring the perpetrators of terror attacks to justice. US says Pakistan government must deny safe haven to terrorists. After Prime Minister Modi's support to the Baloch cause, Islamabad registers cases against 3 Balochistan leaders. United States expresses concern over human rights violation in Gilgit-Baltistan. Historic peace accord signed between Colombian forces and FARC rebels. With provisions to punish war crimes, the deal will end the 52-year conflict in the country. Colombians welcome the agreement. And in a first-of-its-kind move that recognizes destruction of heritage sites as a war crime, International Criminal Court to prosecute former jihadist AL-FAQI for ruining Timbuktu's cultural heritage. The powerful earthquake that ripped through central Italy this week has killed more than 250 till now and has left thousands homeless. Now, even as Prime Minister Renzi visited the quake site, several bodies were being pulled out from under the massive mounds of rubble that now cover most of Amatrice. As rescue efforts and search operations continue day and night, the European country grapples with a lost town, traumatized residents, and a question of what's next.
An earthquake, a destroyed town, and a 15-hour wait for this little girl to be pulled out from the rubble. It was a ray of hope amid scenes of devastation and death. This time, Italy was in the news not for its usual culinary delicacies or romantic getaways, but for a heartbreaking reason. A strong earthquake measuring 6.2 on the Richter scale shook central Italy in the early hours on Wednesday and killed more than 250 people, till latest reports. Rescuers warned that the numbers could rise further as the search for survivors under the debris continues. Emergency workers with sniffer dogs are trying to find anyone still buried beneath. This reflects the country's tragedy and its desperation to survive through nature's fury. Amatrice, a town of about 2,000 people, was one of the hardest hit areas. Known for its local pasta, Amatrice had holidaymakers visiting ahead of its 50th annual food festival this weekend. Voted as one of Italy's most beautiful historic towns last year, Amatrice is now in ruins and up to 15 tourists are believed to be buried under the debris. Residents recall the fateful night as horrifying, one where they lost their loved ones. Leaders from across the world offered their condolences to Wednesday's victims and offered support.
We express our deepest condolences to all those affected by the earthquake that struck central Italy. Today, Secretary Kerry spoke to the Italian Foreign Minister and made clear the American people stand with the Italians in this difficult time.
The pictures we are seeing are awful. We will be ready to do everything that we can to help Italy.
The earthquake was so sudden and powerful that it was felt across a broad area with dozens of small towns. The U.S. Geological Survey places the largest instrumentally recorded earthquake in central Italy as the one that occurred on the 13th of January 1915. It killed a staggering 32,000 people. But tremors are not a new occurrence in this region. Many parts of Italy lie on a major seismic fault line. According to the Foreign Office, tremors and earthquakes are almost a daily occurrence. They are also caused by movements in the Eurasian and African tectonic plates on which Italy is situated, and those that are in conflict with each other. Italian Prime Minister Renzi has promised to rebuild devastated infrastructure and relaunch efforts to protect the country's buildings from natural disasters. Even as soldiers, police and aid workers struggle against time to free those trapped under heaps of rubble, Italy will need to plan bigger, better and faster before it's too late.
Turkey was rocked by 2 major terror strikes over the past week, killing more than 60 people and wounding dozens. At least 9 people were killed when a car bomb hit police headquarters in Turkey's largely Kurdish southeastern region, Cizre. The attack in the city came 2 days after Istanbul took out an incursion against Islamic State and Kurdish militia fighters in Syria. Now, it was blamed Kurdish fighters for the attack. Turkish forces launched airstrikes at Islamic State in the northern Syrian border town of Jarablus this week. Another major terror strike hit a wedding celebration in the city of Gaziantep last weekend, the deadliest this year. More than 54 people were killed in the attack and dozens were injured. And news from Afghanistan now. Terror struck the country yet again this week, and this time it was on the American University in Kabul. Now, out of the 16 that were killed in the attack, 8 were students. This attack comes weeks after an American and an Australian were kidnapped. While the United Nations has asked countries to bring those responsible for such terror attacks to justice, United States reiterated that the Pakistani government must deny any kind of refuge to extremists.
Terror struck the Afghan capital once again on Wednesday evening. At least 16 people, including 8 students, were killed and more than 50 others injured when gunmen attacked the American University of Kabul. Explosions and gunfires rocked the campus when the militants stormed in during the evening classes. A 10-hour standoff followed as the security forces battled the intruders. 2 of the attackers were gunned down. 3 policemen and 2 security officers were killed in the attack. Even as most of the students managed to leave the campus, around 160 who were holed up in their classrooms tried to barricade themselves by pushing their chairs and benches against the doors. No group has claimed responsibility for the incident so far. However, Afghan National Security Council in a statement said the investigation has determined that the attack was organized and orchestrated from the other side of the Durand line in a reference to Pakistan. President Ashraf Ghani, who chaired the Security Council meeting on Thursday, asked Pakistan Army Chief General Rahil Sharif to take serious measures against the terrorists. The attack on the Educational Institute comes weeks after 2 foreign professors, one American and one Australian, were kidnapped at gunpoint from their cars, whose whereabouts are still unknown. Expressing serious concern, the UN Security Council has said nations must bring financiers and sponsors of the reprehensible acts of terrorism to justice. The US also condemned the deadly attack on the university as an attack on the future of Afghanistan. State Department spokesperson Elizabeth Trudeau said that US has pressed the Pakistan government the need to deny safe haven to extremists and not discriminate among terror groups based on their agenda or affiliations.
Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte has in fact backtracked his statement in which he threatened to quit the United Nations. Now, frustrated over the world bodily slamming his government for the ongoing drug killings, Duterte later said that he was just joking. Meanwhile, the death toll in the drug killings has shockingly touched 1,800.
Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte was at what he is best known for again, making his point loud and clear, even as it sounds harsh and rough. Drawing widespread criticism for the drug war he has waged since he assumed the top office, Duterte went on to threaten the United Nations to form a separate grouping with China and the African nations. UN human rights experts last week urged Manila to stop the extrajudicial killings.
I do not want to insult you. But maybe we'll just have to decide to separate from the United Nations.
Duterte won the presidency on a promise to wipe out drugs. Filipino voters knew what he actually meant by this, given his record as Davao mayor. The cries of rights bodies and activists haven't dented his image or plans at all, and his popularity is growing as usual. However, after his fiery statement on the United Nations, his foreign minister, in a damage control exercise, clarified his comments by saying that the Philippines believes in the world body's principles and objectives, and there is no question of leaving the United Nations. Duterte also termed the UN threat as a joke.
Can't you take a joke? Where will we join? In a sunken association?
Because they should behave the way they should behave.
The country has recorded about 1,800 drug-related killings since President Duterte took office 7 weeks ago. The figure is far higher than previously believed. The revelation was made by the country's top cop, who's loyal to Duterte, Ronald De La Rosa, at a Senate committee hearing. The president has denied that the government was responsible for the extrajudicial killings, but has ordered the police to shoot the drug offenders if they resisted arrest.
In yet another move that gave anxious moments to its neighbors, North Korea on Wednesday test-fired a submarine-launched ballistic missile off its east coast. Now, the missile flew more than 500 kilometers towards Japan, an indication of North Korea's improving technological capability. The launch was the latest in a string of missile launches by Pyongyang in defiance of UN Security Council resolutions. Now, concerned over North Korea's provocative tactics, United Nations Security Council held a closed-door meeting. This meeting was held at the request of United States and Japan. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said that the launch was unforgivable and posed a grave threat to Japan's security. South Korean President Park Geun-hye said that the nuclear threat from North Korea is not an imaginary threat anymore, but a real and an oncoming one. Frustrated over Balochistan's plight coming into focus after Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi made a mention of Pakistan's troubled region in his Independence Day speech, Islamabad has registered cases against the region's top leaders. Now, Pakistan booked 3 top nationalist leaders, Brahmudak Bukti, Harbiar Mari and Bano Karima, for backing Prime Minister Modi's supportive words on Balochistan. Now, in Balochistan, freedom fighters raised posters of late Baloch leader Akbar Khan Bukti and Prime Minister Narendra Modi demanding independence. In another setback for Pakistan, the United States expressed concerns about the human rights situation in Gilgit-Baltistan in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Now, the territory, illegally occupied by Islamabad, has been witnessing protests in the recent days against the atrocities committed by the Pakistani army. Protesters are demanding the withdrawal of Pakistan from the region, blaming it for clamping down on innocent people. Meanwhile, in an exclusive chat with Doordarshan News, Baloch leader Brahmudak Bukti has again expressed his gratitude towards the Indian Prime Minister for bringing into focus the plight of Balochistan.
जब नरेंद्र मोदी साहब ने इस इशू को उठाया, ये हाईलाइट हुआ और इंटरनेशनली लोग इस पर बात करने लगे। पाकिस्तान में, हिंदुस्तान में सब लोगों को पता चलने लगा है कि वहाँ पर क्या हो रहा है और पाकिस्तान क्या कर रहा है। क्योंकि जैसे आपने कहा कि अभी अमेरिकन ने इसके ऊपर बात की है, तो ये एक अच्छी बात है, क्योंकि अमेरिकन ही हैं जो पाकिस्तान को सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं। और वॉर अगेंस्ट टेररिज्म, पाकिस्तान उसी वॉर अगेंस्ट टेररिज्म को सपोर्ट कर रहा है, उसी वही इमदाद लेके इन्हीं एक्सट्रीमिस्ट ग्रुप्स को सपोर्ट कर रहा है, कश्मीर में कर रहा है, बलूचिस्तान में कर रहा है।
Bukti welcomed America's concerns of the human rights violations by the Pakistani government and its army and demanded that Washington must discontinue its aid to Pakistan.
ये बड़ी अच्छी बात है कि अमेरिकन ने इस पर बात उठाई है और हम उम्मीद करते हैं कि ये सिर्फ बात उठाने तक महदूद ना हो, बल्कि इस पर अमली इक़दामात उठाए जाएं। इस सेशन में इसको बिल्कुल एक यूएन के अंदर इसको उठाएंगे और साइड इवेंट्स कर रहे हैं उनमें इस पर बात करेंगे, तो डेफिनेटली होनी चाहिए, वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट।
52 years after the war between Colombian forces and FARC rebels, a peace accord has been signed under which a string of provisions to deal with conflict-related crimes have been given. Now, the FARC will become a political party once the deal is ratified. The agreement was welcomed by Colombians who survived through a conflict that left thousands dead, lakhs of people homeless and several missing.
Celebrations erupted in Colombian capital Bogota as hundreds of people celebrated that historic moment they have been waiting for years. People from all ages jumped, raised slogans and cheered the signing of a historic peace accord between the government and left-wing FARC rebels. The deal comes after 52 years of conflict. The accord was signed in Cuban capital Havana after 4 years of negotiations. The two sides had signed a bilateral ceasefire in June, paving the way for a final agreement. The war between Colombian forces and FARC rebels has killed an estimated 220,000 people. Tens of thousands have disappeared and millions fled their homes because of the violence. The peace deal comprises 6 agreements. They cover justice for victims of the conflict, land reform, political participation for ex-rebels, fighting drug trafficking, disarmament, and the implementation and monitoring of the accord. Under the peace deal, the FARC will begin moving its estimated 7,000 fighters from their jungle and mountain hideouts into disarmament camps set up by the United Nations. The FARC will then become a political party. Its weapons will be melted down to build 3 peace monuments. Special courts will be created to judge crimes committed during the conflict. An amnesty will be granted for less serious offences, but it will not cover the worst atrocities such as massacres, torture and rape. Those responsible for such crimes will face up to 20 years in prison with lighter sentences if they confess. The deal will now be put before the voters for ratification on the 2nd of October. Most opinion polls suggest Colombians will back it. President Juan Manuel Santos is fighting hard for years, given fierce opposition from powerful sectors who think the only solution is to crush the FARC militarily. Santos was re-elected in 2014 on the promise of a peace deal.
Texas and 4 other states have sued the Obama administration over extending its healthcare non-discrimination law to transgender individuals. Now, they allege that the move represents a radical invasion of the federal bureaucracy into a doctor's medical judgment. The Affordable Care Act, which is also known as Obamacare, was passed in 2010 and includes anti-discrimination provisions to prevent insurers from charging customers more or denying coverage based on age or gender. Now, the appeal comes 2 days after a U.S. judge blocked Obama administration's guidance that transgender public school students must be allowed to use bathrooms of their choice. The nationwide injunction was granted on an appeal by a group of 13 states led by Texas. The guidance, though not legally binding, had said that if states fail to comply with, they would face the loss of federal funds. In a first, the International Criminal Court is prosecuting a former jihadist for demolishing ancient sites in Timbuktu. Now, former Islamist rebel AL-FAQI al-MAHDI admitted damaging shrines during Mali's 2012 conflict. This is for the first time that destroying cultural heritage has been included in war crimes.
In a first of its kind, the International Criminal Court at The Hague is prosecuting a former jihadist for demolishing ancient sites in Timbuktu, a city in West African nation Mali. This is for the first time the concept of war criminality has been extended from killing people to trying to wipe out cultural heritage. Former Islamist rebel AL-FAQI al-MAHDI admitted wrecking holy shrines during Mali's 2012 conflict and apologized at the start of his trial.
I'm really sorry, I'm really remorseful, and I regret all the damage that my actions have caused. I regret what I have caused to my family, my community in Timbuktu, what I have caused my home nation Mali, and I'm really remorseful of what I have caused the international community as a whole.
Prosecutors say Mahdi led a band of jihadis in the systematic destruction of relics of Mali's ancient culture of pluralism. Using pickaxes and crowbars, they destroyed 9 mausoleums and the door of a mosque. Most of the sites dated from Mali's 14th century golden age as a trading hub and center of Sufi Islam. Timbuktu's 3 mosques and its mausoleums were considered the great treasures of Saharan Africa. Despite the efforts of their custodians, manuscripts and books dating back to the 13th century were lost. The UNESCO called the attack part of a genocidal project and attempted annihilation of otherness. The destruction triggered global outcry. Archaeologists hope the trial will send a stern warning that such plundering of the world's common heritage will not go unpunished. The court will pronounce its judgment on the 27th of September. Mahdi faces a maximum sentence of 30 years, but prosecutors are expected to ask for a lesser sentence given his cooperation. UNESCO listed the city as a World Heritage Site. The city recovered the mausoleums this year, a proverbial rise from the ruins.
And after that, let's get you other stories that made it to the headlines this week.
Security forces gunned down mastermind of Dhaka cafe attack in Bangladesh. Tamim Chaudhary, the planner of the attack, was killed with 3 other suspected militants during police raids in the south of Dhaka. The attack last month had left 22 dead. Top French court has suspended the ban on full-body burkini swimsuits. More than a dozen French towns impose bans on burkinis. The court has warned mayors of the towns to fall in line and follow the court ruling after some of them announced the continuation of the restriction. Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy has told his supporters he will ban burkinis across France if he is voted to power, has announced his presidential bid for the 2017 elections. A powerful earthquake shook central Myanmar on Wednesday. At least 3 people died. Scores of centuries-old Buddhist pagodas around the ancient city Bagan were damaged. Besieged residents and rebels began leaving Damascus suburb of Daraya. Insurgents and government forces agreed to a deal on Thursday to evacuate the town, which the Syrian army has surrounded since 2012. Former Singapore President S.R. Nathan no more. 92-year-old former senior civil servant was the sixth and longest-serving president in Singapore. 94-year-old Belgian legend Toots Thielemans passed away. The world's most famous harmonica player, whose career spanned around 70 years, made music with some of the biggest names in jazz. Gaza Zoo's last tiger, Laziz, and 14 other animals have found a new home in South Africa. The Khan Yunis Zoo in Gaza, dubbed the worst zoo in the world. Repeated wars and few visitors have left the zoo struggling.
Some twisting, some twirling and a knack for beats. That's all you need to be at the World Tango Festival and Championship that is going on in Argentina. A dance form that dates back to the 19th century, tango is so integral to Argentine culture that it is even used as a mark of protest, let alone celebrations.
Long, elegant steps with complex footworks, a dance form that blends with the rhythm of the tune. As Argentine capital Buenos Aires hosts the World Tango Festival and Championship, the dance form that captivated the imagination of millions across the world is once more in the spotlight in its place of birth. With over 400 couples participating in the competition from all over the world, the pairs take to the stage twirling and twisting, thinking about winning, but even more about having fun.
Well, it's a championship, so the level is always very high. During the round we danced in, one could feel the powerful energy of tango, so I get lost in that. I can't see, but you feel it when you're on the floor, dancing in full swing.
Traced back to the late 19th century, tango had its origin in Argentina-Uruguay border. With a mix of European and African dance movements, it developed and became popular in the suburbs of Argentine capital Buenos Aires. The graceful walk of the partners, coordinated with the music, is the base of the dance form. Over the years, tango has developed now with a number of forms. For Argentines, the dance form is very much a part of their culture. The country even dances to mark their protests. A person traveling to the South American nation just cannot resist moving with the beats. The influence is so great that US President Barack Obama, in the midst of serious diplomatic talks, could not resist shaking a leg during his visit to Buenos Aires.
They say blame the action, not the man, and a jail in Uruguay is doing just that by helping inmates transform through skills that create a life of dignity and positivity. The Punta de Rieles prison has a world within itself, with its 700 inmates involved in baking, making pizzas, gardening, and even opening up their own eating joints in the premises. It's a story of faith, hard work, and of breaking stereotypes.
Alvaro Brusti, Francisco Javier, Fernando Gustavo Cordero, Marcos, Helio Rey Silva Lopez all have their own businesses thanks to the Punta de Rieles prison in Uruguay, which takes the task of transforming seriously. The Uruguayan prison aims to create a civil society inside the jail premises. The inmates of the prison are encouraged to take up a job or use their creative mind and come up with their own businesses. The prison, as a result, not only houses 700 inmates, but also a bakery, a pizzeria, ice cream parlor, and a brick factory. They then send the money earned home or are given coupons to buy things inside the jail. Going by the saying, dignity begets dignity, the prison director and the other guards also treat the inmates as equals and professionals.
We do believe that people are shaped by the circumstances. That is something we strongly believe. Therefore, if the circumstances change, the person should change.
Usually prisoners turn back to old ways quickly when they get out of jails. This practice, however, makes them want to work and change their lives. Former gang leader Gilbert Ayrala, after his release, started a bakery business along with his cousin in the prison premises itself.
The only possibilities I saw were here. I know I could not launch a business like this one outside.
The prison looks like any other prison from the outside, with big walls and fences. But with these innovative practices, it breaks traditional jail systems and serves as an inspiration and an opportunity for the inmates to better their personal lives and career prospects, training them for a second chance.
Well, this brings us to the end of this edition of World Konnect. Do send us your feedbacks. You can write to us. Our email ID is worldkonnect.ddnews@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Facebook. But before we leave, we take you to China, where the largest glass bottom bridge has been opened to public. Take a look at it. Thanks for joining in. Thank you.